you. One of the things that we pride ourselves in is doing it for you, with you, and around you, but also, especially considering you or with you in mind, because that's our person, you, and it's radio according to you. Look, it's exactly 20 minutes past and time for us to check out exactly what happens there. Now, John Perlman spoke to the director of the Organization for Child Law, Karabo Oza, about the judgment. The Constitutional Court found Section 4B of the Drug and Drug Trafficking Act unconstitutional. Oza argues that focus should be on rehabilitation over criminalization. The Constitutional Court ruled on Section 4B was found to be inconsistent with the Constitution and to be found that children should not be criminalized for cannabis possession or use. Oza said that the decision to lay criminal charges against a child for cannabis use does more harm than good, as they end up in the criminal justice system rather than receiving help or treatment when necessary. We are not saying that there is now new legislation of children being found in possession of testing positive for cannabis. We are saying when you do find them, and the consequences should be putting them on a program under laws that already exist. She said the treatment centers need to be enhanced and updated to be appropriate for children and to meet the specific needs in these cases. The KwaZulu-Natal Social Development MEC, Nonhlanhla Khoza, has called for a hefty sentence for a pastor who allegedly raped his niece in KwaMashu, north of Durban. According to reports, the family was divided after the victim shared her ordeal. Some of the individuals have tried to conceal the incident, while others resolved to expose it and registered the rape case with the police station this week. Khoza expressed her shock, adding she wanted all the family members who wanted to hide the rape to face the law. She said it was disgusting that an uncle or pastor who was supposed to protect a young girl failed to and became a nightmare. Khoza said it is very painful to learn that these rape cases and the children victimized by the very same people who are supposed to have protected them. This child's life has been destroyed. She said the department wants people who violate women's rights to be declared unfit to lead churches and be closer to children. We cannot tolerate people who continue to camouflage sexual assaults to protect the perpetrators. We commend those who committed themselves to expose the perpetrators in this case. We want to see the investigating officer doing meticulous work in this case to secure long sentencing. Khoza said a team of social workers was dispatched to give support to the victim and her family while ensuring that they work with the police in preparing for the court proceedings. Fraud levels are high, Mzansi, and apparently fraud unravels everything. That is the law. These are the words of Judge Adams when a widow who was caught out after she claimed she was the only surviving spouse of her deceased husband, although they had been divorced for decades. The executor of the estate of the late Jeremiah Hadebe, who died almost 2 decades ago in April 2004, turned to the Gauteng High Court, South Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg, to have the transfer of property into the name of his former wife overturned. Hadebe, Hadebe was married to her until their divorce in 1997, and 5 years later he acquired a property. The wife, through what the court said were fraudulent means by misrepresenting to the master of the High Court she was the only surviving spouse of the deceased, obtained letters of authority and had the property transferred into her name. Judge Lester Adams said the fraud by the former wife did not end there. During 2006, she obtained a loan from ABSA and, as security for the loan, had a mortgage bond registered over the property in their favor. The executor of Gadebe's estate asked the court that the endorsement of the title deed relating to the property and in terms of which it was effectively transferred to the former wife be cancelled and ownership reverted to the estate of the deceased. The fraud came to light in 2015. The transfer of the property from the deceased estate to the first respondent, whose former wife, was tainted by fraud, and resulting registration of ownership in the name of the first respondent falls to be set aside. The judge said the same applied to the mortgage bond. He referred to an unrelated but similar case presided over by a Supreme Court of Appeal in which the judge said no court in this land will allow a person to keep an advantage which he has obtained by fraud. Fraud unravels everything. The court is careful not to find fraud unless it is distinctly pleaded and proved. But once it is proved, it vitiates judgment, contracts, and all transactions whatsoever. If you are waiting for President Ramaphosa to heed calls from the opposition and axe members of his cabinet over worsening load shedding crisis at Eskom, do not hold your breath. Ramaphosa appeared before members of the parliament in the National Assembly on Thursday, 29 September 2022, to answer a series of questions posed to him in a variety of issues, with Eskom showing no signs of suspending or unrolling the blackouts anytime soon. It probably came as no surprise that the embattled power utilities' failure to keep the lights on was on the agenda. The DA's John Steenhuisen asked Ramaphosa why key members in his cabinet, Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe and his public enterprises counterpart Pravin Gordhan, have not been fired. The fact that they remain in their positions is a demonstration to the nation that you have clear confidence in them and are satisfied with their performance. Will you tell South Africans today what level of sustained load shedding will these ministers get fired for? In response to the question by Steenhuisen, President Ramaphosa said that the current bouts of load shedding of the country was experienced was not the willful and planned intention of anyone who works in the state system, including Eskom executives themselves. He admitted that in 2015, based on information that he had, the government was confident that load shedding would be a thing of the past. Due to the construction of the Kusile and Medupi power plants, the two plants cost the taxpayer a whopping 163 billion and were set to be completed by 2015. But this is yet to be. So, how rich is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky? The Ukrainian president for much of the world is an admired leader guiding the Ukrainian resistance in the fight against Russia. However, he is not without his detractors, and some of them claim that the president of Ukraine has a fortune of suspicious origin. Zelensky has $1.4 billion, tweeted Garland Nixon, more than Will Smith, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle combined. We are to believe, or are we to believe, that he made this as a comedian in the poorest nation in Europe? Reportedly, Zelensky has $1.4 billion, a fortune larger than that of a combination of the biggest comedians in the world. It's an American radio debater and occasional talk show host said on Fox, he posed this question on Twitter. It is clear that the war is not taking place only in the Ukraine, but that the propaganda guerrilla warfare is also taking place on social networks. The dissemination of the millionaire figure of Zelensky's fortune seeks to undermine the popularity of the president of the Ukraine and to make him out as corrupt. But what is the truth about Zelensky's economic realities? Shall we find out? Well, the answer has come from a medium that is perhaps the most reliable source when it comes to fortunes, which is Forbes. According to the publication data, Volodymyr is not a billionaire, nor does he have $1.4 million. In fact, the list of billionaires in the Ukraine, as Forbes point out, has been reduced to only 7 in the country due to the Russian invasion. And Volodymyr Zelensky is not one of them, nor has he ever been. Interesting stuff, but is that really what the focus of things should be? Or is this just a way to kind of, turn your head this way while something is happening the other side? Let's go to the airlines. National carrier SAA restarted operations a year ago after a lengthy business rescue process, which resulted in a slimmed down airline that would ideally become less reliant on the national fiscus. SAA's flights remained grounded from March 2020 to September 2021 due to the protracted business rescue plan, flight bans, and lockdowns during COVID-19 pandemic. Now, a publication reports that the airline has now been dealt another blow by losing its rights to operate flights to a number of destinations. The International Air Service Licensing Council has revoked 20 of SAA's 52 international licenses because the carrier could not prove its capacity to service the routes. The national airline had 20 out of 52 routes license revoked. At the height of its operation, South African Airways had a total of 42 aircraft deployed across its route network. The airline now has only 9 aircraft in its fleet. This has resulted in SAA holding rights to operate routes, and it cannot service with the number of aircraft it has at its disposal. With SAA no longer offering services to many of the destinations in its former route network, there is now a shortage of seats on a number of routes which passengers are demanding. Exactly 9:30 now, and time for us to continue. A scrapyard owner running a chop shop in Ivory Park, east of Johannesburg, was arrested on Tuesday, the 27th of September, for possession of dismantled vehicles. Ivory Park SAPS said the 48-year-old man who runs a scrapyard that is also thought to be used as a chopping shop for stolen or hijacked motor vehicles was arrested and is also charged with bribing 2 Gauteng Highway Patrol officers. When it became apparently clear to him that his criminal ways had come to the cul-de-sac, the suspect allegedly tried to bribe the officers with 1,000 and 1,100 rand. He is allegedly the recipient of stolen and hijacked vehicles. Congratulations to the arresting officers from the Gauteng Highway Patrol and other role players involved in such as Ekurhuleni District Intelligence Task Team and the Tembisa Tracing Team for having undertaken the successful operation, which is surely going to assist in solving the several trio incidents in Ekurhuleni, possibly beyond, said Ungcobo. After months of investigating, the courts arrived at Gqeberha City Hall with sirens blaring on Thursday, looking for the city manager, Noxolo Nqwazi. She later handed herself over to the police. As the Hawks sirens blared in the street in front of the Gqeberha City Hall on Thursday, Executive Mayor Retief Odendaal was wrapping up a press conference. A good way to figure out if you have good people on your team, he said, is if you hear sirens like those and you look at your colleagues and none of them flinches. It is understood that the city manager, Noxolo Nqwazi, was arrested for her role in the signing off on a 24 million rand tender for toilets in several informal settlements that were awarded during the national state of disaster due to COVID-19 pandemic. Nqwazi handed herself over to the Hawks at the Humewood police station at about 3 p.m. She's due to appear in court on Friday, which is today, alongside her co-accused, the Metro's former Human Settlements Director, Norman Mapu, businessman Xolani Masela, and his spouse, Nwabisa, as well as former Democratic Alliance councillors Trevor Lowe, Neville Higgins, and Victor Manyati. It's all going down. Avid fisherman Roland Pillay was left stunned on Thursday morning when he reeled in the body of a man at Virginia Pier North in Durban. Pillay said that he arrived at the pier on Thursday with friends, and on his first throw, he said he landed a monster fish. I had a bite and started reeling. Suddenly, my line went very tight and I couldn't see what I had hooked. I reeled it into shore and my friend ran down to get a closer look. I said it was a tree trunk. The 45-year-old said he was in the shock when his friend called him saying it was a body. I couldn't believe it. The body was wrapped about my line and was stiff. The man was naked and looked to be in his 30s. The body was not decomposed or had any parts missing. My friend grabbed his leg and pulled him to the shore. Pillay said he was left scared by the incident. I don't know what to say. I'm scared to cast again. I'm here hoping to land a rock salmon, but I never thought I would. This would happen when it be the outcome of my day. Police have been approached for comment. Former President Jacob Zuma suffers another legal blow as the Constitutional Court dismisses his bid to force Justice Mandi Samaya to reconsider his special plea to have prosecutor Billy Downer removed from his corruption trial. The Apex Court unanimously dismissed Zuma's appeal, saying he had failed to convince the court that Justice Maya grossly misdirected herself when she found against his removing Downer. Zuma has also asked that the Concourt grant him leave to appeal Judge Piet Koen's dismissal of a special plea to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The court says Zuma is entitled to seek leave to appeal in Koen's decision, but it is not clear whether he will take the option. Zuma is due back in court next week. While dismissing accusations that the dollars stolen from Phala Farm were linked to money laundering, President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday dropped a quiet bombshell that the blind trust he intended to establish on becoming deputy president was never set up. After the 2012 Mangaung ANC conference elected Cyril Ramaphosa as a party president, some of the first questions he was faced with about his wide-ranging business interests, a review was started. And when Ramaphosa became deputy president of SA after 2014 elections, many of these business interests had been shared. In 2013, he stepped down from the Mondi board, and before that, in 16 August 2012, from the board of Lonmin, where the police had killed 34 striking miners. Other business divestments followed in compliance with executive ethics code and to avoid conflicts of interest leading to a complete divestment from the Shanduka Group, according to the then deputy president. In the interim, the family's interests will be held in blind trusts, and he said in a statement. Now, President Ramaphosa on Thursday said, initially, the intention was to do a blind trust. I do not intend to do any other form of business except in the agricultural sector. But all other financial and other interests were declared. So in the parliamentary disclosure, Phala as such was not publicly declared, but game and cattle farming as Ntaba Nyoni Estates, Ntaba Nyoni Feedlot, but also featured as part of directorships and partnerships. But Thursday was important on another level. After months of facing off bruising questions and disrupting sittings in Parliament, Ramaphosa's tactics of invoking due process changed in an apparent effort to improve the optics. None of that is particularly new. Shortly after the theft of dollars stuffed into sofa cushions at Phala emerged in June, ex-spy boss Arthur Fraser laid charges over the February 2020 theft. The Private Security Industry Regulating Authority, PSIRA, said it is investigating an incident where security guards were filmed lashing a man who allegedly stole peanut butter. In the 27-second video, which had since gone viral on social media, a man allegedly stole different brands of peanut butter and hid them under his body, and a security guard can be seen lashing him. In the video, the alleged peanut butter thief, who is already scarred on his face and has blood, can be heard asking for forgiveness as one of the guards continues lashing him. The second security guard is holding the alleged thief's arm so that the one giving out lashes is not disturbed. He says, I am employed. I can even give you my work number. I will pay. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. In response to the viral video, PSIRA said that it has identified the security company officers the officers work for, and it is investigating the incident. Finally, and further afield in our beautiful continent of Africa, President of Kenya, William Ruto, addressed a joint sitting of Parliament this Thursday, with members of both the Senate and National Assembly convening for the address. Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, and his Senate counterpart, Amason Kingi, stated that the address by the head of state complies with Article 132(1)(a) of the Constitution, requiring the head of the state to address the opening of each new Parliament section. The head of state outlined policies and key priorities anchored in the bottom-up economic model. The 13th Parliament was sworn in on September 8th, following the aftermath on August 9th. The sitting comes amid an intense supremacy battle between President Ruto and his rival.
This is KNR Radio, according to you.
You're listening to the sound.
Sound good together, huh?
Uh-huh.